Hello, and welcome to the News from the Real World video podcast.
That was good.
This episode is titled Art and Innovation, where we look at some of the articles this week that people are doing a little bit different things with their work. Margo, why don't you tell us about shadow art?
Absolutely. This is an article from twistedsifter.com. This is about an artist named Wiegman, who is Dutch, like most people are with those sorts of names, I imagine. So he was born in 1944, just a little while ago. And so in the 1980s, he started exploring with this sort of shadow art where he builds sculptures and then lights them in such a way that it creates a shadow image. The sculptures themselves look sort of nothing like what the shadows look like, and so it creates this really interesting dichotomy between the thing you're looking at and the projected shadow, which are these totally different images. Like, you know, it's a little twisted piece of metal, but it's this, it's this shadow of Michael Jackson. And so they're really cool. I encourage people to check them out. It's this really interesting idea of kind of showing the essence of something that doesn't look at all like what it is. I thought it was a really neat sort of system for creating art.
I think we could probably utilize something like this in dance, where lighting design could, you could construct bodies to form a certain shape, and it would be projected or something on.
Did you guys see Pilobolus at the Oscars a few years ago? They're this dance movement group, and they would do these amazing things with their bodies. But like they would move around, and then suddenly it was like the van from Little Miss Sunshine, or suddenly it was like a bunch of penguins.
I did see that. Yeah.
But you could use that, the body's form in a certain way that doesn't look anything like the shadow. That would be really interesting.
I will say that just looking through some of these photographs, which you should definitely check out because they're really cool, that I have a greater appreciation for just lighting design in general. Not that I didn't already have a decent respect for them, but like just because it, like Margo said, the objects look nothing like their shadow counterparts, and once he started working with like transparent or translucent materials as well to throw color up on the wall too. That was really cool. There was one of a necklace that the reflection on the wall was a dollar sign, and it was the glint off of the necklace that formed down, which I thought was really, really cool. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of direct application from this, but
I think it was just another awesome example of
creative
artists like doing really cool things.
Creative class, if you will.
Yeah.
Reference the first web podcast.
Check it out. All right, Kat. I want my parents to go see a show, maybe at Long Wharf or maybe at Goodspeed Musicals. What can I do about it?
Well, according to this article on Courant.com, it's called A Connecticut Theater Club, Say That's the Ticket, by Frank Rizzo. You could buy your parents a gift card to the Connecticut Theater Club, which this article proposes. And they could then choose from, this list of theaters that is provided what they wanted to go see and when and where. So that was the essence of this article, that it would be great if this group of Connecticut theaters could come together and create this Connecticut Theater Club so that people who wanted to give theater as a gift to their kids or to parents or to whoever they wanted to didn't have to choose one show or one time or one performance, that they could give the giftee the choice. So what do you guys think? Is this, I know a lot of the comments were saying that this is a cool idea, but it's not really feasible.
I totally disagree with that.
Think?
I totally disagree with that. I mean, there's all sorts of, most major cities in this country have some sort of arts organization that is already there, already supporting a large group of theater companies. And I think the idea of a gift certificate or a Groupon for area theaters is an amazing idea.
Well, here's
and
what
probably not difficult to do.
No, well, because this was presented as like, what an innovative idea, but this happens all the time already, right? Even in Pittsburgh, we have the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, where you can buy a gift certificate and attend any one of their shows. Chicago has this thing called Play Money, which is the League of Chicago Theaters. So you have 75 different theaters you can choose from. You can buy in like denominations of $25, and you can spend that at any of the 75 member theaters. It's pretty simple construction. Or even like in Chicago, some of the neighborhoods, like the Rogers Park, which is a very active arts neighborhood, has the Rogers Park Flex Pass, where you buy, I think it's like 5 tickets to any of the shows in Rogers Park for the year, and then you can, work it out to attend whichever theater you want. But I think doing it on a statewide level probably presents some more challenges. But I was just surprised that this was like, presented as so innovative, since it's something that's been implemented for a number of years.
Well, it doesn't sound like Connecticut
It's a much smaller market. And, Chicago's a big market, and Where else did you say? You said
Well, I mean, Pittsburgh, I mean, I'm thinking of
Pittsburgh.
Philly.
There's a Philadelphia
Yeah.
similar. Yeah.
Philly has something. So this is on a much smaller scale. You know, statewide, yeah, that probably presents a few strange.
But I don't know. I don't know about that even. I think, especially today in 2013, when we can connect with anybody and instantaneously.
saying-
Like, I think the idea of especially with a state as small as Connecticut, like you can doing something statewide is not nearly as difficult.
Yeah, I mean,
as-
the way that they write it makes it sound like it's not a big deal. That
Right.
Connecticut is, you can drive from one end to the other in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, probably not the Montana theater.
Yeah.
club.
Right. Like
But again,
or
because
California,
most
from LA to San
a large
Francisco.
percentage of theater companies out there across the country have some sort of online presence. I don't think that it would be that hard to implement something like this on a statewide level.
No, I
I
don't.
think it would be, because I think theater communities are almost like their own little city states, where it's tastes, preference, genre, style, everything is like pretty much isolated from the city. So like, could you do a California theater alliance? I mean, I don't think so, because like the audiences in LA are gonna be different than the audience in San Francisco. Even Pennsylvania, a much smaller state, right? So like
Yeah,
like the audience in Pittsburgh are different than the audience in Philly. So like to center all on one statewide thing. So there's one organization. So then who controls that organization? And if people are buying gift vouchers or gift certificates for theaters, and it's all going to theaters in Philadelphia, then Pittsburgh is losing. Or so.
Right, it's always been-
I'm worried about the state level.
It's always been my thought that theaters are in competition with each other.
Yeah. Oh, they are.
That the Pittsburgh Playhouse is in competition, not Pittsburgh Playhouse, Pittsburgh Public is in competition with City Theater,
sure,
right?
to a degree.
So if there was a Groupon or there was a gift card that could get you a ticket to either of those shows, that I don't know if that has the
See,
same competitive level.
But theaters also want to make money. So if somebody wants to buy a gift certificate for somebody, then that's a ticket that you wouldn't have sold otherwise.
I kind of disagree about the competition. I think it may be depending on the setting, but I think, in Chicago, League of Chicago Theaters, you've got 75 theaters, and there's not, people like share their marketing lists. It's not the idea is that you're competing against you're competing against going to the movies. You're competing against, going to a concert. So the idea is that people who attend theater will want to attend more theater. So if someone attends the Court Theater in Chicago, great, maybe they'll attend Looking Glass next week.
yeah,
So
I hope that's true.
Yeah.
I do hope that's
I
true.
think
I think
that's
that
a
is
little
true.
bit
The Pittsburgh Philly audiences, no way.
Well,
Pittsburgh
no,
definitely
I
competes
mean,
with
if you were to try to do something like this statewide, you would need to do it in some sort of regional sense.
yeah.
You would
Yeah.
need to break it down.
That's
to,
why Connecticut may work.
Yeah.
But in the
Because
sense of Connecticut, where you
Connecticut's
can drive across it in a reasonable amount of time, or New Hampshire, or smaller areas, I think that could act in the same sense as state. It could equal
A regional,
that
yeah.
regional area.
I think if we develop the concept that these theaters are working together to create a stronger audience, a stronger patronage.
But I think to a large degree, most areas do.
I hope
there is
they
some
do.
Sort of,
I
there's
don't
some
know.
sort of coupling, and there's some sort of overarching group that an arts council or something that is
In New York, it's
at
definitely
least
a
has its
competition.
fingers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Without
a
a
whole
doubt.
different
New
kind
York
of.
is a different
That's not
thing.
nonprofit. That's for-profit theater.
Well, there's a lot of nonprofit theater
Well,
in New
but-
York.
Yes,
More
that's-
nonprofit
yes,
theater in New York
that's-
than there is anywhere else in the world.
I also wonder too how much this might help Connecticut, which is just a train ride away from New York, compete with New York.
With New York,
With-
I think
might-
that was the point
yeah,
of this.
might happen as well.
Yeah,
So
What do we know?
I don't know.
I don't know.
So today's Wednesday. It's New Comic Book Day. When we're done taping, I'm gonna go down the street and buy my comic books. A
Good.
comic book story kind of showed up on the blog today, which I'm pretty pumped to talk about. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman. Is the name of a really cheesy musical that debuted in 1966, sort of in the same light of the Adam West Batman TV show. We have to stop, or else I'm not going to make it through it. So this was a review. The Encore concert series did it in New York. It closed last weekend, and so some of the words, some of the nuggets from the review are two-dimensional, old-style song and dance, shrewdly silly, and campy. The reviewer said these are all good things about the musical. What do you guys think? Did you read the review? Would you go see Superman the musical?
I would absolutely go see Superman the musical because I can't stand the thought of Spider-Man. and I haven't seen Spider-Man. I admit to that. But I am not trying to go see theater that's a movie. And I've never been trying to do that. I don't
Sure.
need special effects in theater. I love The Drowsy Chaperone. That's one of my favorite musicals of all time because it's so simple, right? It's on and off. It's musical theater. I don't need all that stuff. And I think that's maybe what the Superman thing would be for me, personally. There's not a lot of stuff. It's just silly. And I like to see silly theater every now and then.
I mean, I also think that the point was it's two-dimensional because it's two-dimensional. It's about Superman. It's about a comic book.
Right.
And the fact that it's two-dimensional and it's campy is the point. That, someone goes, bam, when, like, that's the point of a comic book. And so I think...
Back to the old Adam West days of Batman. You know,
Yeah.
they did
Oh,
this and it was
yeah.
like,
Yeah, which
Yeah.
was seriously,
Right, you know,
seriously campy tongue.
which is awesome.
Which
I
is,
love that show.
Yeah.
So
And when things were, not only is it two-dimensional, but sort of like heroes are heroes and bad guys are bad guys, no one is like angsting over, like all the heroes aren't crying and they're, by themselves in the dark. Superman
right,
is...
like everybody hates me, but I'll save you.
But I'll save you
That's-
anyways.
that's-
I'll save you.
Where is it?
So
Where are the dogs?
where is it?
There's an idea that I came across a couple years ago. One of my old professors said that she thinks the best theater has what she calls a form-content fusion, where the form of the piece, so how you're telling it, mirrors the content of the piece. And so she was into solo performance and performance art, and so she was that. But I think this is a good example of that, where we have a comic book on stage, so it's going to be campy, and there's been some success with this in the past, right? So probably the most famous comic strip musical, which everyone forgets is a comic strip, is Annie, right? So Little Orphan Annie was a comic strip, and it was real cute and sweet, and like there's a musical, and people love it, and they fell in love with it. So I think this is another good example. There was a couple of comments about Spider-Man from the student comments, and another couple of other comments about this sort of, I want to talk about this movie thing. Like, so what do we think about is this whole theater trying to compete with movies, trying to compete with TV by being gritty and dark? Do we think that's a good thing, or do we think this Superman thing is an indicator that maybe we should reflect on what we're doing?
I don't think you can't really pigeonhole all of theater for, one audience. You can't get every single person in the same seat to see the same show in an entire city, because there's so many people with different tastes. They want to see different things and the different moods. And so I think that what I do love about this show, and this show being fairly successful, I understand from the review, that that there are different flavors for different tastes out there, and that still can happen, and that still can be done. And we don't need to cast only movie stars in Broadway shows. We don't need every single Broadway show to be a movie on stage. They can be their own thing. They can be from the 1960s and still work on stage. We can do a little cardboard cutout of Superman flying along the backdrop.
I want that to be true, but that's not true.
I think it is
I
true.
want that to be true really bad, but it's not true because Spider-Man is still running, and this thing's closed.
Well, but different. I mean, but there are going to be people out there who want to see the spectacle.
There are more people that want to see that spectacle. There are more people that want to see
That might very well be
more
true.
people that want to see Spider-Man that want to go see Superman sing about being cool for.
And I
2
think
hours.
that's where Spider-Man failed, right? Because it didn't recognize what it was trying to be, right? So like it became part of the spectacle. But I think originally you have to think Julie Taymor, Bono and The Edge, like these people know their stuff, right? So you think they would know how to tell a story. You think they would know how to write a song. So you think they would come up with something that would be good and would do really well. But it didn't. It fell on its face. And now people go to see the train wreck, or they go see.
They can't wait to see if Spider-Man
Falls,
splats
Or
into the
even just
wall.
fly. I mean, he's doing really good
Somebody
just
steps
flying
on him.
around.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, you're right. That's where Spider-Man fell, because it didn't.
But that's what remains on Broadway, not shows that are straight, musicals like Superman or Drowsy Chaperone, or even Chorus Line wasn't, real.
Or even like there's like some of them like Avenue Q, right, was a huge success, and that was kind of real silly and sort of knew the story it was trying to tell, and
also closed.
yeah, like,
Yeah, but
eventually, but
everything
like it-
closes.
No, I'm just saying that the thing that the majority of people want to see is that big effect, that big thing, that's
But I think-
Spider-Man
I mean-
and Phantom and Wicked. That's the thing they want to see.
I
Like
think a lot of
once.
that is based on prices, because if you're paying $100, like people might get mad if they see a cardboard cutout flying across stage. But that's also different. That's New York. That's
true.
that Broadway
that's what
is a
we're
tour.
talking about, though.
Broadway is tourist.
That's what we're talking about. Is New York?
Yeah.
We're not talking about regional theater.
Right, but like
Yeah.
Once, for example, is not a huge like spectacle-laden special effects show, and yet Tony Award winners still running. So I think there is some variety on Broadway. I mean, I would agree that people for that ticket price point are going to expect pizzazz.
Right, but at the same time, if you go see Superman and you are expecting it to be another version of Spider-Man with people flying everywhere, and you get mad, I think you've missed the point.
Yeah.
If you don't know by the end of the first musical piece,
This is not
that's
Spider-Man.
not what you've. And at that point, that's a failing of the PR people. That's a failing of the advertising. If people are buying tickets to see Superman and they think they're seeing the second Spider-Man on Broadway, then you haven't sold your product
I don't
right.
think they fail. I think maybe they want that a little bit.
I think they do want it because that's how they
That's
want
how
it.
they sell tickets.
So,
Well,
want you to believe
but
you're gonna come see
then I think that's a misinterpretation. I think that is wrong
and I
because that's
think-
not what you're selling.
But
That's not what they're going to
want
see.
you to go in thinking you're going to see Spider-Man and leave thinking, I didn't see Spider-Man, but I really liked it.
Right, and that's the reality. So, like, disclaimer. So this was a limited run engagement. It was purposely like this series only puts on shows for 2 weeks. But just 2 years ago, Dallas Theater Center did their own version of It's a Birds playing Superman, and they spent $800,000, which is a ridiculous amount of money to spend, with the hopes that maybe Spider-Man would do really well, and then it didn't. So then they just ate $800,000. But what can you do? But that's all the time we have for today. You can see the articles we've been talking about on the link below. Check us out on Twitter. Leave a hashtag NFTRW. Let us know what you think. If you like what you see, tell your friends. If not, tell your enemies. Thanks. See you next time. So Shadows, Connecticut.
Rewrite history. DuckTales.